Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to be sharing a little experience we had that's very normal. You might have it once in a while that some change shows up at your front door and it shocks you. You're either stressed by it, scared by it, threatened by it, whatever emotion you can frame with. It's not a response that you would choose to have to change, but it's definitely a physical, emotional reaction.
Yeah.
And that's normal from hearing something that you don't want to hear to, um, yeah, seeing things you don't want to see, just being confronted with difficult change, change that you feel that is addressing your root. It's grabbing you sometimes by the throat even. We're gonna talk about how to deal with all those difficult emotions and share a bit about our own experience and maybe drop some wisdom in there as well.
Mhm.
Welcome to the Love Change podcast.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Kay. This is Amor. You find us if you search for the Amomuto podcast. You're gonna find us. It's the Love Change podcast, and we do that because we care to shed a light on all the discomfort that happens around change, and we feel that, especially nowadays, everyone is just showing the pretty and yeah, kind of beautiful end result without really looking into what is going on when we go through change, all the growing pains, all the discomfort, everything that happens, and we kind of tie under the carpet. So we care to talk about that. We like to look at it and share with you and really be honest, vulnerable, and authentic. So, welcome to this episode. Here we go.
It's my turn to talk now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think all of us go through plenty of changes that we're not looking for. Right now, I'm personally dealing with people passing away because of illness, cancer, um, people who are still ill and are refusing to go to a doctor, or just, I think that's a big part of life that's painful is dealing with loss. So if you would categorize all the changes that you experience through your life, the unwanted changes that are most difficult to deal with are the ones that will not change again, and those are the ones that are the most permanent, and they're usually the ones that have to do with loss. um, a lot of wanted changes in our life will evoke pretty emotions.
Mm.
My family, for instance, when they were confronted with me breaking my neck, almost dying in the intensive care because of a lung infection, all of them were extremely shocked, and everybody has a different wiring of how to deal with that shock. You were mentioning the fight, flight, or freeze response,
Yeah.
which is a very um, yeah s- somatic experience.
Mm.
It's in your body. You do not choose to freeze. You do not choose to flee away, and a lot of times you also do not choose to fight. It's just the way you are wired,
Mhm.
what you saw in your younger years, how people respond to stress, and also yeah, what is most common for you. And I think in my family we have a lot of freezing slash fighting, um, sometimes also fleeing, but mostly denying all the emotions that are involved.
Mm.
And I think that's what we're going to talk about today. For us, being in a relationship, confronting each other with changes that we want or changes that we don't want, uh, we evoke these emotions in each other.
Yeah.
Um, we don't have to go into the topic, but could you explain a bit about the emotions that you experience
Mm.
when you are confronted that you would categorize like change shocking you?
Hmm. Yeah, I think we had a conversation on the weekend and kind of found out that we have a whole different view on some things. And for me, it's a foundation for a relationship. Part of that we talked, and I found out that Amor really sees it differently. And it's really intense because especially like after 1.5 years, quite some coaching, quite some talks, you kind of think you know someone, and then you figure that out, and it really explodes in your face. That was at least my experience. I went in the complete freeze, then a fight, and then a flight. So I literally did not have any control over my body. My body really completely took over. And I was just so overwhelmed by those emotions.
What
And
were the emotions?
it was, first of all, it was really shocking to me. And then it was really, I just felt so touched in my sense of safety.
So you
That
felt unsafe.
threatened. I think we found a good word for that. I really felt unsafe. I felt threatened in who we are, what we stand for, and who I am in this. And really like disappointed in a sense, finding out that we see that topic completely different. So I think that was really interesting to observe, and not even observe, you observe afterwards, but in that moment you just completely not yourself. Like I shut down. I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do with that? All the scenarios were running through my head. Super, super crazy, super intense bodily reaction. And that was really, really something. So
how many hours would you say these emotions lasted?
well, kind of like the first ones are the most intense ones. I would say that was probably 3 hours. And then a certain sense of calm.
But you said you went from freeze?
The freeze was maybe like half an hour, like the shock part is the freeze for me. Then you go into fight. That was me. That was like, I guess those 2 hours.
Okay.
And then the flight of like, okay, I cannot deal with that.
How
Shut
long
down.
did that one last?
That one was the longest. I would say for sure kind of at least 8 hours or something.
I went a day over it, right? It lasted a couple of days.
Well, it mostly was on Sundays. It was the day after. But really, in that sense, I was also like, just keep your distance. Like, don't come close. Like, I really shut it down so much that I was like, don't you come close. Because it's just too intense.
What did you notice in your body during that period?
Oh my gosh, super tense. Super, super tense. I also referred to like my intuition is telling me that. And that the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, no, actually it was not my intuition, because that voice is much lower in volume. It was really the fight and flight response to be like, get the fuck out of here. So it's really more the sense of safety that got really triggered. That was like, cannot deal with that. So that's how I would phrase it. What was your observation?
My observation, definitely, I think when you are describing the flight, so that you were looking for distance, I felt a lot of hostility. So in that sense, that for me more felt like a fight mode.
Interesting.
I think when you were having the fight mode, I was passing out. I was falling asleep.
Missed out on that.
And then the freeze, I think, was confusing for me because I thought that was the flight.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And I think also your response shocked me on its own. So it was definitely difficult for me to keep in mind that this is not your response. This is your reaction to something that triggers a lot with you. And we've gone through a lot of work to create a safe environment to share stuff with each other. I was just thinking to myself as an example, let's say somebody says they are gay. It's like a big, like, why is that always such a big thing? Why do kids fear telling their parents they're gay?
Mhm.
because the parents respond out of shock by change response because something is threatened. I think this
Mhm.
emotion that you described, I think
Yeah.
you described a bunch of interesting emotions. To feel your safety threatened, to
Mhm.
feel disappointment. There was what else was there? I think you mentioned some more thing.
Anger also.
Anger, yeah.
Yeah.
All these things.
And disappointment in both ways. Also disappointed in me to misunderstand the message that far.
Sure
You know,
thing,
so it's a mix
sure thing.
both.
I think the interesting part of it is like, um, first of all, if something unexpected happens,
Mhm.
that can be something that we did not want, but then it also has the unexpected layer to it.
Mm.
But if something is deviating from our expectations, which
Mm.
means we expected A and got C,
Yeah.
then the shock is even worse than not expecting anything and getting C.
Yeah. I agree.
So,
Yeah, I think in our example, it was really something that, well, if you have a certain set of values for your relationship and you're pretty sure that you talked about it
mm,
and clarified most of the questions, I think then it's really, you think you have a common agreement or understanding of
mm,
A, but then you figure out, no, you're on A and the other person is on D.
mm,
And you're like, okay, that's really so far away.
mm.
So yeah, I think that was really the biggest
Yeah, I think what that
challenge.
addresses is definitely that it's implying a certain breaking point for a relationship,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I mean
that's the part that feels threatening, I would
yeah,
say.
that's why I was also really blunt. I was like, okay, I have no idea what this is teaching me,
Mm,
but I'm kind of, at least the next day, not the same day, but the next day, I was like, I'm curious to see what this is teaching me,
mm,
and what I believe this is either going to break us or teach us, make us stronger. So I think
mm,
that's really the crossroad where you're like, okay, what am I going to do with that,
mm.
and yeah, I kind of learned to not pack my bags, because that would be my initial autopilot response that I would do in the past. I'd be like, okay, bye,
Yeah,
done
I
with that.
think that's an interesting one to talk about. Like, in some sense, you're saying you would listen to your fight or flight completely
Yeah,
in the past.
not always, but it was not always fight or flight. It was also intuition, but this time it was not intuition. It was more fight or flight.
Mm,
But if a certain sense of, in that case, safety is touched with me, I would I would at least have not been as invested as
mm.
to sit with it and be like, what is this teaching
Yeah,
me?
I'm also
Something I don't like, but what is it teaching me?
curious about mm, why would you sit with it? Why are you like ignoring or not listening to? You say it's not your intuition;
Yeah.
it's your fight or flight, but that is also based on self protection and when you do not feel safe or you feel like your safety is threatened.
Mm,
Um, I think a lot of people experience. I think that's the biggest reason why people break up
yeah.
or don't feel as much connection in their relationship as they used to,
Yeah.
is because at some point in time something happens. Can be incident, can be a repeating thing,
Hmm.
but something in the sense of safety breaks, that you're like, hey, I also have to put up a guard
Mm,
in this environment. How long you can keep up with that
mm,
is up to you, but it usually means that you're distanced from each other.
yeah. I was distanced
No,
for
for
really,
sure.
for a day. I was like, don't even touch me. Really
I
could
think a
not.
day or two, even more. I think it took
Yeah.
like 2 3 days to be able
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Have a
look me
human
in,
connection.
nah, look in the eyes.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
start
true.
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
that's true. Yeah, but what was the question again? How do
why
you
did you
why?
why or how do you even like, I know myself, if my sense
Oh,
of
got it.
safety is triggered,
Yeah.
I am very radical. I am very confrontational. I'm like, yo, if this is gonna repeat, then I'm gonna make some decisions. And the way I saw you reacting, it seemed like a very high, like you also mentioned, it's like the most red you have ever been.
In this relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but you know, if you let some time pass and you let go of your red head that you have been in, or have been
How
wearing,
do you?
how do you let go of it?
Yeah, that's, I think, for a lot of people a difficult thing to do.
That's true. That's a good question. I don't know. The more time passes, also, and the more distance you create, which I did. I went out the next day to nature, just be by myself. The more I also allowed myself to like put it in a box, close that box, and distance myself from the feeling, and then you enable yourself to look at it from different angles. Otherwise, if it's in you, then it just eats you up, and then you
Well, it's a
cannot
difficult
think
thing to do,
clearly. It is, but
though.
you can.
Usually, when you are in that place, your emotions and your negative thoughts are consuming you.
That's true, but
What you said, like place it in a box, close it, take a look at it from a distance, different angles.
yeah,
How do you put it in a box and look at it from a distance? I think.
I'm kind of really always very curious about those things. So if I catch myself really sitting in it, I'm not saying it's always working, but to be like, I'm not getting anywhere if I stay in that soup of emotions, you know. So I try to put it a bit aside, because also in some sense it was too painful to sit in it. So I was also like, putting up my guard is also putting up a guard against you, but putting up a guard against my emotions. And then you kind of, yeah, you try to rip it out of you and put it on the side. And it still sits in you. Like you can really feel how much it triggers in you every time. Like, yeah,
I think the biggest thing, I see you struggling to formulate it, but there are some things that I observed that you did, which is a, do not pretend that you not have these emotions.
yeah.
So you fully stayed in the red and was like,
Yeah.
this is the red and this is where I'm at. And let me turn on some more lights. I'm not gonna act like that's not the case.
Cooking, no?
And
Cooking
oh, yeah.
for, yeah. Yeah, there
There
we
we
go.
go.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
definitely not.
So you did not sugarcoat your reaction.
No.
You see people who tear up and then wipe away their tears and walk away and then come back, act like nothing happened, and just try to shove it down or put it under a carpet. No, you were like, do not touch me, do not look at me, don't get near me, away. Very clear, creating your own boundaries because you were in a red zone.
Yeah.
And then, secondly, I think what you also did is when you went on your walk. I think that's a very important thing. So, first of all, acknowledging that you're going through something and then doing something that's good for you. So, you usually either go to a beach for a walk or to a forest for a walk.
Yeah.
And then you are able to do what you said. And I have trouble believing that you put your emotions in a box and then close the box and put it aside and then look at it. I just think
If it's too painful, I really do.
I also believe that. But I think what you did in this experience is just instead of sitting in the same environment that triggers all these things,
Yeah.
you subtracted yourself from that,
Yeah.
went to a safe place,
Yeah.
a sacred place, so to say, a place by
I feel
yourself,
home.
no distraction, somewhere that you are triggered in a positive way, a place that actually facilitates your curiosity to look at all these emotions from different angles.
I love that.
That's what I think you did, because if I look at myself, if I'm angry or triggered by something, if I'm sitting in the same environment where it happened, I cannot detach from it, nor inspect it, nor digest it, so to say, because that environment is continuously triggering those emotions or that person.
Totally agree. I missed out to mention that part.
Mm.
Absolutely. But I think there is also one step ahead of it is breathing.
Mm.
Even in bed, I was mad,
Yeah, you were doing
really
the
mad,
Libras.
but I really kept breathing because for
Yeah.
me, that's also something you really start to hold your breath and you get even more in red and you
Mm.
like put yourself in a rage, which doesn't help at all. So
Mm.
I'm really like breathe in, exhale, sigh,
Deep
that
breaths,
part.
all the
Yeah.
stuff.
So when I went to the park, I really was like consciously heavy breathing to get that out. I think all that helps to put it in a box. And it's not easy at all. It takes some practice, but I
Mm.
also know my default reaction, you know, and I think you really have an extraordinary talent to trigger many things in me for 1.5 years. And obviously, I've stayed because there is something in it that I love. And there's also a big portion that I'm like, I have never thought I would be where I am, but actually, I love the change you initiated by triggering those things.
I appreciate that.
So, yeah, by that, I also, you know, if something that major happens,
Mm.
I'm like, I'm here and I'm invested to try to take it out, put it on a platter, and
Mm.
look at it and
Mm.
look from other perspectives than the one I'm feeling hurt right now.
Mm.
Because that is just one layer, and that's definitely way more layers around it that comes from. And
Mm.
I think that also is important to mention, brings me back to our number one rule for our foundation is that there is no bad intention. And I think
Mm.
this is also something that whatever happens, and if you are in a relationship, I think it's really helpful to talk about that with your partner. That's what we did in the beginning, to say whatever comes across as hurtful, painful, I don't know what, remind yourself there is no bad intention. And I think this is something that helps me in so many moments to think, no matter how you bring something across, and it might sometimes be quite
Blunt.
harsh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, okay, there is no bad intention.
What is he
Dot.
saying? Yeah,
What is he trying to tell me? And then I can still keep a certain sense of curiosity. Didn't work so much on the weekend. I needed the space to really,
This is a
um,
trial and error
yeah,
practice. Also, if somebody has the best intentions but is being an asshole, still gonna trigger you.
yeah. I don't think having the best intentions and being an asshole. I
Nah,
don't know.
sometimes people come strange out of the corner. I think it's also sometimes we are more sensitive than other times.
Of
So a
course.
silly joke might land very poorly.
Yeah, I love that. Amor is always saying if he sees my face and I don't respond to the joke, he's like, "Oh, is it too early for jokes?"
Yeah,
Because he
it's
knows
just too
it's
early.
just too early for jokes. Like I'm not in a headspace to laugh about his jokes. I find that also a very playful way to kind of,
Gauge where you're at. You don't know where you're at. You
yeah, and
cannot.
also like fluff it up a bit.
Hmm.
The tension, fluff it up a bit, make it a bit lighter.
Hmm.
Because then I'm usually like, damn, yeah, it's a
It
bit too
is still too
early.
early,
It's a bit too.
but
Even
then you
now, I
catch
started saying it
yourself.
myself. I'm
Yeah,
like,
then you catch
too early.
yourself on hanging on to something that
Yeah,
already passed.
yeah.
I think what I'm reflecting on is what you said, that okay, we have the foundation
Mhm.
cornerstone of not having any bad intentions.
Mhm.
But I think what precedes that even is your commitment to learning and growing as a person, and seeing all these moments that I trigger you not as a nuisance but actually as a tool for you to speed up your growing and learning process as an individual. I think that's also one of the things we were talking about, creating a course for power couples. Like, what makes a power couple is that, first of all, each one of these people is invested in their personal growth. And if you're talking about personal development and personal growth, the most gains that you can have as a person are sometimes very dark, painful places that you rather not go. That's why you break up every time you have somebody coming closer to you. That's why
Mhm.
you label yourself as having commitment issues or whatever. But actually, if you truly want to be committed to yourself and your own growth, then a person who triggers you and also supports you and is kind to you and has good intentions is actually a blessing, because you're spending so much time with them. They will trigger the hell out of you. They will point out the things that you're trying to hide. And if you don't want to do that for yourself, because this has nothing to do with the relationship, I think this has something to do with what you want for yourself.
Yes, but the being with someone is definitely accelerating that.
That's what I mean. But
Absolutely.
But like, if you were not invested in growing as a person, all this triggering, why would you like
Absolutely.
sit with that and like, "Ooh, I'm curious what this is teaching me"? No, this guy's triggering a lot of bad emotions, and do I want that in my life? No. But you can look past those bad emotions or the shock reaction and be like, okay, this is interesting. A conversation can completely disrupt me and unhinge me and make me feel unsafe. What's that about? But if you don't have that question mark there, then that conversation is just a bad experience. That person is a bad person, and it's end of story.
Yeah, but again, I think really the anchor we have, what did you call it, the cornerstone, to know that someone doesn't have bad intentions makes it.
I feel that's my naivety to think the world consists out of people with good intentions.
Oh,
but
no.
but I think
No.
I think in a
Hell
re-
no,
in
really
any intense team, people will say things unnuanced or tired or whatever, and then it might come across very poor. And those moments is important, that there are no bad intentions.
No, but honestly, I really disagree.
You think there are plenty of people
There
with
are
bad
plenty people with bad intentions
in
in the sense,
relationship?
no, in the sense that they have an ego. They have a strong sense of ego, and something touches that ego, and that's how they respond. And I think we both are very connected in that meta, to really not let us respond out of a place of ego, and knowing that's good intentions. I think that's a different.
That's
a
your
different
ego
place.
talking.
No, that's not my ego talking. No, I also myself had quite some experience in the past in relationships where I was like, on the surface, it looked like a good intention and it sounded like a good intention, but under the surface, something, my intuition was really very quiet, saying, I'm not so sure about it. Maybe you should really, and I ignored it for a long time until it blew up in my face. But I really like, you can make it look as it is a good intention. I believe many people are very
some
much.
people are also all
what
about
do I
sharing the misery. Like, if they're
Also.
a miserable person, then their intention is to share what they have, and
Yeah.
then they're sharing the misery. If I look at it, and they also just want to share what they have.
Yeah, that's their substance.
So, what did you learn about yourself dealing with all these intense emotions that were triggered and like shocking change? I think big shocking events we have in our lives is loss of loved ones, loss of friends, accidents, like things that happen to your stuff are a little bit tragic and shocking, but things that happen to your health, the health of your loved ones, those are the ones that truly hit you hard. I think another big shocking one that everybody knows is heartbreak, loss of a relationship. In that sense, the person is still there, but either they don't want to be with you anymore, you don't want to be with them, and you have to break up.
Yeah.
These are big shocking experiences. Yours was a bit different, but you had yeah, like you said, if it was the old you would pack your bags and go. So the emotional level was there to be like, okay, this is a red flag, bye.
Absolutely. But that's the part I'm super proud of.
Yeah, I think it
the
deserves-
first thing I grabbed in the morning before I left was a book called The Surrender Experiment.
Mm.
You didn't really want to
Yeah,
read
you
that
told
one,
me about it.
but I read it like half a year ago, and I was like, I did just one edge that I folded inside to remember one page, and I like opened it on that page,
Mm.
and I was like, okay, that's interesting, because that guy basically writes about his life and all the things that happened to him, and he has this like, oh, I don't want to do that, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna do it, and his life unfolds completely beautiful and amazing with the things he's doing. I really enjoyed reading that book. So that was part one, where I was like, okay, what is in that makes me surrender? And then I went out and I was sitting in the car. I went for a walk and I was like, universe, why are you giving me that? Like the why me question. And then, I was like, no, that question is for me. Like, I got to figure it out. I got to figure out what is in that. To keep the curiosity up was a complete game changer for me. And it was not easy in the beginning. It was like, I want to find out more. And I also came back saying, like, cannot accept that, but I'm going to keep the conversation open, and I want to keep my curiosity open because I'm interested despite being in a complete different corner. That would have never happened. And that for me, I just put a check on the growth box.
400%.
Really, like
100%.
that was so strong to not
So
follow my default, pack my
what
bags.
you learned is, despite all the intense feelings and the intense shock reaction, the fight or flight, the freeze, just the survival instinct kicking in because of stress, because of an unexpected, unwanted change, so to say. You were able to create space for yourself to have those emotions, first of all.
Yeah, I was able to take a second and a third look at it without, turning it
Making
off.
decisions.
Exactly. But really put it on something and take a look from different perspectives and not make the decision based on my
I
red
think
zone.
it's interesting that in that experience you learn that you have this capability. First of all.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, I cannot deal with this. I cannot. I will not. I'm just heartbroken, or I'm struck by lightning, and that's it.
Yeah.
So to understand that you are capable of such a thing is actually very empowering, because then you can actually live a way bolder life, because you're not afraid of all these emotions anymore. And if they appear at your doorstep, of course you got to keep the breathing deep and long. But they teach you a lot about yourself. And what you said, like the growth box is definitely checked. Every time something triggering happens, it's an opportunity for learning. And every time something painful happens is also an opportunity for learning. And then the lesson is not always don't do that again. The lesson can also be, where's that pain coming from? Why am I so sensitive to these sensations? What's that telling me about myself?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But I think also to add that to the conversation, the way you handled it afterwards was also very powerful. If you have someone that stays in your space and is willing to ask questions and kind of like react really well. You've been like asking questions. How am I doing? If I want to talk about it, how I feel, what you observe, etc. Like really mirroring a lot. I think this also made the steps further to not be confirmed in the, I should just get the fuck out. But to be like, no, someone is
I didn't
really
make it worse.
You did the opposite. I like that is selling yourself short. You did it really well. I was like, wow, you took it well. Maybe you didn't allow all the emotions, but the way you kind of like guided, walked with me that part the second day was really powerful. Until the moment we've been in the park and you're like, you still want to hang out with me or you want to go home? And then I was like, would you just bring me home? And you're like, yeah, of course, so the level of care and commitment and still curiosity from your side was really
Yeah, I
powerful.
think that has to do on one side with me being a coach, um, but I think mostly if you see somebody completely freaking out,
Yeah.
um, not taking that very personally is important. So a
Mm.
lot of times people get upset because other people got upset, and then the upset people get more upset, and then it's like,
Ding 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 ding
yeah,
ding.
it's like a pinball machine going
Yeah. Oh
off.
my gosh.
Um,
Mm.
but actually, if you see somebody getting super upset, then you cannot continue any type of conversation before that person is back to somewhere that they don't feel such a stress, such a shock.
Yeah, but like fair response to also say because I'm a coach, but how do you maybe you got some more tools that people
Mhm.
have, but still, how do you deal with something like that being involved in it? Obviously, the
Mhm.
coach part in you is like, okay, I can use my
No, I
coach
don't
tools,
think
but
my coach part, but I think just being aware of that because that's only the awareness. But I think mostly it has to do with caring about person.
Mhm.
I care about you. I didn't have that conversation with you to upset you,
Yeah,
but the conversation did upset you,
yeah,
and that was not my intention. So I
yeah.
was like, what about it was so upsetting? I was definitely driven by curiosity,
Hmm.
and
Love
I
that.
think one thing I've learned over the years is also patience. Um, yeah, it's for free, but it doesn't come easy.
Yeah,
Um, and I think another part of it
it's for
is
free.
patience doesn't cost a
Mm,
thing. It's sad to realize that
yeah.
such a how you it's scarcity, but it's free. Um, all I can think of is you know to be able to love, you have to be able to lose as well.
Mm,
So for me, a long time ago, uh,
100%.
um, loving was very painful because the losing aspect of it was so melodramatic,
Hmm.
and I would always live in this Superman complex that I have to save the relationship.
Mm,
Um, I think that's something that changed inside of me. That's like, yeah, I truly love you. I care about you, and
mm.
if we are not meant to be, then I cannot prevent that,
Yeah, artificially.
keep it
Yeah,
alive or whatever. So
yeah.
the surrender experiment in that sense is I
Mm,
do surrender myself to what is in my destiny, and I think
mm.
it's in my destiny to be happy. I think it's in my destiny to
Love
live a
that.
connected life and in abundance. And I
Mm,
think it's in my destiny to do great things. And I've met you along the way, and I hope
mm,
you are part of that destiny. But my hopes don't matter that much. It's
mm.
about what's your faith in that sense. And
Yeah.
I think when I encounter a situation like that, that cornerstone of my own beliefs really helps me to also take a step back and be like, hey, whatever this is,
Mm,
for the good or bad, is just us labeling it. It might create some discomfort if it ends up in an ending of something, then that will create the beginning of something new. If it's the
mm,
continuation, then there's also a lot of learning going on.
yeah.
In either way, um, I think that's important to not let your partners or your whoever you're sitting across their emotion to pour into yours. Like if
Mm.
your cup is like boiling fire, it doesn't help
Yeah.
if I add my cup to it and I'm also boiling fire. So
Yeah.
I was a calm pot, and then my pot fired up yours, and I was like, oh, that wasn't the intention, but
Mm,
that's what it is apparently.
mm,
What's up with that? And then you also luckily took the time to come back and tell me what's up with that, or
mm,
at least every step of the way you gave signals about how you were doing, where you were at, what kind of space you needed.
mhm,
And I'm actually happy ever since learning that we are I am responsible for my own feelings, and so are you. So if you get super
Yeah.
upset or completely fucked up about something, first of all, that's your responsibility. And I might feel bad about initiating that, creating
Yeah.
that, whatever. But still, I do not, how do you say it, give myself the um, responsibility for your feelings and your well-being. So that creates the space that I need to be able to sit with you and not feel
The
guilty.
distance also as such, no?
No, I think
In the best sense,
space is
Yeah.
a nice word to say it, because
Yeah.
I also needed space after you blew up like that. I was like, whoa, that was unexpected.
Unexpected.
Yeah. So my unwanted, unexpected box also got hit. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we cannot always be in control in that sense that we uh, decide how we react to something unexpected and unwanted happening. But this time it went luckily very well. I
Yeah.
think I was able to postpone my own feelings, and then eventually you were like, okay, what's up with you? And I was like, yeah, there was no space for me back then. But your reaction also triggered a lot of things in me that I also need time for.
Yeah.
And there's no rush. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't take it personal, because for me, as much as it was sharing something intimate and vulnerable, I wasn't in a bad place when I was sharing it.
Yeah.
So your reaction didn't choke me up. I do know from a past experience that when I'm in a bad place and I'm trying to share that and that goes wrong, then I definitely step way more into a survival mode,
Yeah.
because I'm already hurt. You know?
Yeah. Agree.
Super.
What's your best outtake, or what's your biggest outtake today?
Today, I think the biggest outtake for me is the simple step by step. When you're dealing with a huge stress reaction to change, something that shocks you, um, first of all, acknowledging it with yourself,
Love that
and
part.
also communicating that with whoever is involved or surrounding you. Like you said, that girl on the street asked you for some I don't know, subscription thing. Like, yo, I don't have the headspace for that now.
No.
And there is no need for politeness. If you're bleeding, you're not gonna stand holding your hand and be like, oh, excuse me, sir, can I pet? You're like, yo, get out of my way. I need band-aids. Same goes for emotional cuts and bruises. And to really give yourself the space to disconnect and take distance from the location and people involved. Focus on your breathing. I think that was a very good thing to do, that also sometimes might feel hard, because you're like, okay, I have to go now. But still, it needs to happen, and it will end up in a better result. So sometimes you feel like we need to resolve this right now, because there was a big shock and there was a big change, and now. But that now thing is there's tomorrow, there's today, there's and eventually, if you get tired of waiting, then that's that. Somebody's working at a different pace than you are. But to be like really, also, I feel like in this process, you didn't blame yourself for taking the time that you needed or taking the space that you needed. You really felt that you deserved that process. And I think we all do. And not enough of us. People talk about their work, being disappointed for not getting a raise. And then, I just said, okay. And then I went back to work. Actually, you need to blow off some steam. Maybe you want to take half a day off. Maybe that will make life easier for you.
Yeah.
Or your colleague is being not nice. Whatever it is that is stressing you out and triggering those fight or flight responses, ignoring it will keep you there. Acknowledging it will allow you to shift out of it. I think that's my
Yeah.
biggest takeaway from today.
I love that. I think the acknowledgement part is really huge. And then the allowance to sit with those emotions. You know, I was really angry. I was really upset. I was really hurt. And to not try to like shovel that to the side and move on
keep
and
on
think what's
smiling.
the next step, but to express it and really sit in it. When I went for a walk, I was so deeply sad, and I would
Yeah, I
like
can
start
imagine.
crying out of nowhere.
Mm.
But to also sit in those emotions despite them not being pretty, that's also very, very important, because then you're really allowed to dive through it before you take the next steps. And I think we very often, and I'm also very much in that that camp,
Skip
to
it.
not acknowledge and not allow the emotions, but be like, okay, what can we do with it?
Yeah,
That's
or
just too
just don't make
fast.
such a big deal out of it.
Yeah, also. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's like belittling it, right? So yeah, wonderful episode.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing, liking, sharing, commenting, all those lovely things that makes this
Yes.
podcast reach more people who are dealing with change. And they know it's not always pretty. It's very dirty at times, but it's life and we love it.
Yeah, if you have any topics, throw them at us. We always love to hear from you. And we also love to pick up topics because, yeah, we speak a lot about our experience, our day to day experience, but we are very, very happy to, you know,
Include
reflect
yours.
on, yeah, include yours. And if you felt like there was something that you learned, please share with your loved ones, tag us. We love to see that. That just means really the world to us.
Super.
Thank you so much for
Love
tuning
change
in. Love change out.
out.